I've had a long-standing suspicion that really fantastic singers, from Chris Cornell to Aretha Franklin, Paul Rogers, Steve Marriott, Glenn Hughes, all the singers that I talk about on this channel, insert your favorite singer, Lane Staley, Chester Bennington. These really fantastic singers most likely knew less than a quarter of what you know, the information that you have about singing. Think about all the YouTube videos you've watched, all the stuff you've researched and looked up, all the lessons you've had, courses you've bought, stuff you've looked up, whatever it is. That's a lot of information about singing that, there was no YouTube in the 90s. There was no Wikipedia in the 70s. You either got up on stage and sang, or you went to a singing teacher, your local singing teacher, because that's what you were limited to, and then they taught you to sing, you got up on stage, and you sang, right? I don't really think there was, like there is now, just en masse, so many people casually interested in, singing better. So what is it that these fantastic singers who, you have more information than, but they sure sing beautifully, right? They sure sing pretty damn nice. What do they know that you don't know? There's a bunch of observations that I've made about natural singers, more natural singers that I've worked with over the years compared to someone like myself that really struggled with a lot of stuff and took a long time, a lot of hurdles to get through and kind of got there. Natural singers as well. I love a lot of singers. Like Paul Rogers never took a singing lesson in his life, and yet he makes all the right choices, the same choices as a singer who's spent years training their voice. What is that exactly? I occasionally get natural singers who come through my studio, and it's a very different process to someone like myself, where, I went through dozens of singing teachers and courses and really struggled with stuff. And even then, after taking singing lessons, I wasn't really that much better at singing. A natural singer is really going to get there a lot quicker, and that's cool. That's fantastic. I've just noticed a different process with these guys, and these are my observations. Number one, I wasn't going to number these, but I just said number one, so it looks like I'm going to number them. Number one, everything is linked. When I work with a natural singer and when I see interviews with natural singers, there's almost a reluctance to separate the voice beyond one. You have one voice, it's all linked, everything's linked, which is correct. Outside of the pure science of, this formant, this frequency, blah, 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 there is an interconnectedness to everything in the voice. If you add more pressure with the diaphragm, it spreads the palate and you sing a wider vowel, which then affects the thickness of the vocal folds. Everything's linked in these kind of strange ways and slightly different ways between every singer, right? We all have different shaped pumpkins and different resonating spaces and bones, and our teeth are different and things ring differently and we get different effects, but it's all linked. The diaphragm's linked to singing your vowel correctly. Singing your vowel correctly is linked to supporting your voice correctly. The position of the tongue is related to the thickness of the vocal folds, which is related to twang, which is related to forward placement, which is related to the CT muscle and cry, which is then related to the thyroarytenoid, which is then related back to support. It's all this kind of link, all this linked stuff. Understanding that the voice is linked in this way, and one link in the chain changes absolutely everything, is something that you almost can't teach someone. It's something I can tell you guys 1,000 times, but it's something you can't really teach someone until they experience it and they basically let the voice be one. A technique in and of itself doesn't really do much for you unless it supports the principle of singing better, right? There's a difference between just doing something with your tongue, like putting your tongue in a certain position, or singing your vowel in a certain way, or doing something with a soft palate. These individual techniques are really there to support the principle of one voice, or working together in an interconnected way. I'm going to give you an example of this in a second. Number two, again, I wasn't going to number these, but apparently this is number two. Natural singers and great singers make the sound that they have to make to be sustainable. If you really break things down out of context, the sounds that Chris Cornell makes really aren't that pleasant. Same as Aretha Franklin. There is a shrillness to it. Same as Adele. There's a harsh shrillness to a lot of that singing. But in context, it's beautiful. How it sits with all the other instruments, how it sits with her vowel, how she supports it, the phrasing, the delivery, the style of song. It really works. She's just, or they are just, really making the sound that they have to make. Again, look at Chris Cornell in his prime. Look at the sounds he's making on Loud as Love or Bad Motorfinger. A lot of those sounds in and of themselves could be slightly comical outside of context. They're basically making the sound they have to make, right? And with that comes expectation. Expectation. People get tied to certain ideas and certain solutions. And I was definitely one of those singers. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this. Like, let's say I'm singing something, right? I'm walking down this rocky road. I'm wondering where my life is leading. Rolling on till the bitter end. I'm finding out along the way what it takes to keep love living. You should know how it feels, my friend. Ooh, I want you to stay. I want you today. So this is a song that I absolutely could not fucking sing to save my life. Even an octave down. I've given you those demonstrations before. I used to just sing stuff an octave down and think I was doing pretty good. Right? And in particular, what used to happen with this song, and basically all Paul Rodgers songs, was I'm walking down this rocky road, wondering where my life is leading. And I had this really kind of separated split in the voice. Again, the voice has two as opposed to the voice in one. And I went down this rabbit hole of, I'd go to singing teachers and be like, can you teach me to support this? I want to know about support. Let's not go through songs. Show me how to fucking support my voice correctly. I don't want to hear anything else you have to say. I just want you to support it because I'm not supporting it correctly. That went on for years. Years. I work with lots of people like that come to me and they're just like, Matt, I don't want to work through songs with you. I want to make sure that we're not going to do vocal lines together. I want you to just show me this concept and technique. And it's absolutely not the problem that they're having. So same thing with this support thing. If I just try and support that sound in the way that I'm singing that, I'm walking down this rocky road, I can't support that sound because the vowel is so far off the mark that it's not funny. I'm asking for frequencies which are giving me head voice. That's what that is, right? That's not even, it's more falsetto, right? Within 30 seconds of having someone finally show me how to sing the vowels correctly, I'm walking down this rocky road, wondering where my life is leading, rolling on till the bitter end. That's what you're hearing when I'm singing. I'm singing the vowel correctly. And this has the flow-on effect of me supporting correctly. Maybe it's a chicken and the egg thing. I was sensing that I wasn't supporting correctly, and that was my expectation. Just show me how to, appoggio it. Can you prop lean it for me and show me how to do that? That was not the problem. The way I was supporting it correctly was a flow and effect of the way that I was singing my vowel, right? And I could have bought every course on support. I could have been to every singing teacher underneath the sun, and I never would have found a solution unless I had an open mind and I looked outside the box and I actually listened. Pretty sure more than one of those many singing teachers that I went to over the years had actually given me the right solution, but I simply could not hear it because I was so focused on my expectations of support fixing it, right? And then support's really this flow-on effect in a lot of cases. It depends on the person. It depends on what's going on, right? I learned a lot on the job as a singer, watching other singers, asking questions from other singers, even singing in bands and things I thought I knew, like things not working in the rehearsal room, things not working on stage, and then adjusting my approach accordingly, right? I think I learned the most from watching singers like Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo. Maybe you guys know these singers. Maybe you don't, local Aussie singers, right? I've seen Rose Tattoo like 50 times over the past, 25 years of going out to shows and doing all this stuff. Seeing this, 50, 60, 70-year-old guy standing on stage with a beer in hand, kind of smirking as he's just wailing A4s and C5s repeatedly for an hour and a half on stage was a very confusing experience when I was working so hard. Even to sing something at, like a D4 or an E4 was just such a stretch for me. And seeing someone stand there like that and just have this wailing voice come out of them, that's a lot of learning on the job. And that's something that, again, you can't really teach someone. You have to have that experience of going out there and experiencing that and trying to do that yourself. Dave Tice is another one. I'm sure most of you guys don't know him, but there's a band from Australia called Buffalo, which are one of the greatest heavy rock, 70s heavy metal bands. Volcanic Rock's a great record. Only What You For Your Body's a great record. Both have hilarious album covers, which I'm sure affected their album sales terribly. Such an amazing singer with such a beast of a voice on this guy. He used to sing at my local pub when I lived in Sydney. And, just by chance stumbled in there. I'm like, that's Dave Tice from Buffalo. Just sitting there with an acoustic guitar, just wailing these blues songs perfectly. It was kind of funny because being a brash young man at the time, I obviously used to bail him up afterwards and just be like, ask him all the singing questions and all this kind of stuff. He wouldn't even want to talk about it. Didn't know any of this stuff. Kind of brushed me off. There wasn't really any answers for any of these stuff. And the answers that I got from those experiences of watching those really fantastic singers and doing my best to squeeze answers out of them. I'm sorry to you guys for doing that over the years. Simon Melly's another one, a friend of mine from Sydney, sung in a bunch of really great bands. He was actually on Australian Idol, if that's a thing outside of Australia. Really great singer, and he would just stand there and sing stuff like Free and all this really amazing stuff, and just be standing there like with no stress, no strain or nothing. And these singers have inspired me to no end, right? And I noticed that when I spoke to these guys, they would kind of talk about The Voice as one. And I'd be asking about support, and they'd be like, why are you asking me about that? I don't know about that shit. And they're supporting beautifully, which then flows into that expectation of how you're going to get there and what the solution's going to be when someone else who's a great singer is not even focused on the stuff that you're wasting hours of your life on YouTube researching. Finally, the last one. Again, I wasn't going to number it, but this is number 3 apparently. You're probably not going to like me for this one, but attitude, confidence, and putting yourself out there. I would bet if you like a singer that has seen a decline in their vocal abilities, you've also noticed a decline in their confidence. Yes, they're linked. If you're not doing a good job of singing stuff, you're probably not going to be confident. But again, chicken and the egg type thing. Look at a singer like Bon Jovi. Look at 90s Keep the Faith era Bon Jovi. I love those albums. Keep the Faith. These days, the Young Guns soundtrack. Man, give me a singer that can sing Santa Fe like in one go. There's something to the way that he used to sing, right? The confidence of that guy at that time was just something else. The guy you see on stage these days doesn't have that same confidence. I did say that you wouldn't like me very much for this video, but it's the truth. It's absolutely true. These are linked. The voice is a tool of expression. It's expressing a lack of confidence. That's what it's doing. Whether that comes from having issues with your voice, that's another story. You have to be confident. Chris Cornell, the rigidness, especially of the Audioslave era and forward into the later stuff where it's like really stressing to get through a show and stressing to hit the notes and just being this rigid, very anxious person, compared to 1991, Chris Cornell hanging upside down from rafters, just wailing G5s in Birth Ritual. That's not just something that's happened with his voice. There is some other thing that's affecting how he's expressing what's going on. You need that confidence to express yourself correctly, whether that means you learn how to sing better, whether that means you work on yourself as a person, whatever it is, you need that confidence and you need to put yourself out there. Like I said, in the 70s, you had a choice of getting up on stage and singing, or going to a singing teacher and then getting up on stage and singing. There is many more gray shades of singer these days that have never been in a band. They've never recorded something. They've never done a YouTube video. They've never done an open mic night. They've never, been in a rehearsal room with 200-watt Marshalls trying to sing over those two suckers. I can guarantee you it's not a very pleasant experience, right? You've really got to know what you're doing in that situation. Drums blasting your eardrums out, right? You have to put yourself out there. I work with lots of singers that absolutely, knock their goal out of the park for 6. They come to me wanting to sing a D4, right? Couple of months of self-reflection and work, they're singing D5s, E5s, F5s, right? Yet they didn't actually go out there and make the record that they said they were going to make when they could hit that D4 or the E4, right? They don't put that band together and they don't go out there and do it because they're concerned about the reaction from people. Maybe you need that unflinching confidence, like Chris Cornell hanging upside down from the rafters, Eddie Vedder climbing the scaffolding, about to fall to your death, singing these Pearl Jam songs, whatever it is, whatever your reference is. Look at Paul Rodgers singing for Free in the 70s. The whole audience is seated, and yet this guy is it's just such a confident amazing thing. That's why the voice comes out in that way. Look at him now in his 70s. He's just as confident. In fact, I think he's more confident than he was. So we're going to number these. Number one, everything's linked. This is what these singers know that you don't know. Everything's linked. If you're having issues with supporting your voice, you're probably getting your fucking vowel wrong. If you're getting your vowel wrong, you're probably not supporting it correctly. There you go. Number two, unrealistic expectations on the solution. Unrealistic expectations of how this is going to happen. We're going to do a couple of ma exercises, some Hail Marys, some lip trills, and I'm going to be Freddie Mercury. That ain't going to happen. That's not how it's going to happen. You might have to work on some concept or technique which is so far off the mark of what you think, and that's going to get you there. If you don't have an open mind to it, you're never going to get there. Right? Number three is your attitude, your confidence, and really putting yourself out there. And also having those experiences. I encourage you guys to just join a band. Go and join a band. Get in a rehearsal room. You don't even have to be the world's greatest singer. I definitely wasn't when I was in my first band when I was, 18, 20 years ago, 20-something years ago. I was awful. But I had those experiences and I learned from them, playing shows as well, getting up on stage and realizing, oh, that's a shitload of people in front of me. This affects how I sing. These are things that someone can't teach you unless you learn on the job. So I encourage you to put yourselves out there. Record yourself, Make recordings, even just on your phone, and watch yourself back and look at some stuff without having that fear of like, oh, someone's going to say a bad word at me for, singing something and it's not perfect. The Bad Company song that I sang before, a couple of lines of, there's actually a couple of flubs in it. Listen to that. Chuck some headphones on. Have a listen. There's a bunch of flubs in the song. There's some pitchiness on actually quite a few of those songs in that first Bad Company record. And I love it because it's human. And he's obviously done it in one take or two takes maybe. They haven't edited stuff. He hasn't done multiple takes. He's gone in, blown everyone away. They've gone off to the pub. And this is real singing. And this is a real person on that record. And you're hearing this forever, this reality. And there was no fear of a flub. They're on Led Zeppelin's record label at the time, and they have no fear. He has no fear of a flub. Didn't feel the need to go back and do anything again. Yep, it is what it is. Unflinching fucking confidence is what that is. So those three things. It's all linked. Expectations. You just make the sound you got to make. Man, I have lots of people reaching out to me saying, man, but how do I do that in chest voice? A good example of that's Man in the Box, which I'm not going to use as a reference anymore. I've done it so many times over the years. It's made me kind of dislike the song, right? I've done it a couple of times on this channel. There was actually a dedicated video on the old channel about singing the Man in the Box chorus. The comments I got on that actually ended up being fairly hilarious, fairly funny, and then proving this exact point, right? The amount of the amount of comments I got from people on that, where it was basically just like, nah, he's doing it full chest voice, you suck. Like hundreds of these comments, right? I didn't say I sound like Lane Staley. I'm just showing you how to approach this if you can't sing it, right? By nature, turning a word like feed into fade, then modifying it as an e vowel instead of an a vowel, this by nature is mixed voice. Yet, one of the top comments, doing it in mixed voice is cheating. And obviously, if you click on those people's names, there's no singing on their channel because they can't sing because they have unrealistic expectations and they're not making the sounds they have to make to hit those notes. They're tied to this unrealistic thing that they think they're hearing, which is not the reality. And finally, attitude, confidence. I mean, that's a huge part of me doing these videos. It's been a challenge for me. I don't find YouTube particularly easy. I think it's made me a better singer, putting myself out there in this way. I'm not an outwardly extroverted, confident person, but with singing I am, and that's a weird juxtaposition. I'm not one of these talky kind of, big, no, I'm great, you're going to be great too kind of people. But with singing, I have unflappable confidence, and that's been really strange to do YouTube videos where I'm talking on a personal level, which I'm not confident with, versus singing and coaching, which I'm extremely confident with. That's really made me a better singer, I think, and also putting out my original music. I had the channel for 12 years before I shared one of my original songs, which I did recently, 2 of my original songs. It took me 12 years to do that. It's not about things being perfect. It's just about that confidence to put yourself out there. So go out there, join a band, get in a rehearsal room, go and do that open mic, get the experience, get it under your belt. Stop having expectations that you're going to be Freddie Mercury in your bedroom before you actually go out there and have anyone hear you sing. You're going to be 90 years old before that happens. You have to have those experiences and put yourself out there. Just remember, everything's linked. Everything's linked. Stop being hyper focused on the technique that you think is your problem. It's most likely a link in the chain, but not the one you're looking for. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you would like some more content like this. We'll talk soon.